Missiles rocked the Ithorian council chambers as a human and Jem'Hadar female kissed passionately amidst the smoke and chaos, a forbidden love revealed. Zachary Mitchell, distinguished human diplomat, had taken the podium only minutes before to plead for peace between the warring United Terran Federation and Jem'Hadar Empire. His impassioned speech moved the 100 alien delegates, but none more than Pixis, the striking Jem'Hadar ambassador. She shocked the council by voicing her agreement with Zachary, speaking of the horrors inflicted on human colonies by her own military. In the weeks that followed, Zachary and Pixis met in secret, working tirelessly to draft an armistice treaty, but hawkish factions on both sides vehemently opposed any compromise. Threats and assassination attempts forced the unlikely couple to rely on each other for protection. Now, as explosions tore through the council chambers, their secret marriage conducted in an ancient Ithorian temple was spectacularly revealed. To some, their union was a symbol of hope that love could bridge even the widest divides. To the warmongers, it was a scandalous betrayal worthy of execution. With the galaxy erupting in fresh violence and the Galactic Council in shambles, Zachary and Pixis had no choice but to flee into the lawless fringes of space. But even as they ran for their lives, they knew their work had only just begun. For their love to survive and for peace to have a chance, this human and Jem'Hadar would have to find a way to open the eyes of those still consumed by hate. The future of the galaxy itself hung in the balance, and everything depended on them. Zachary's hand closed tightly around Pixis's as they raced through the smoke-filled corridors of the Ithorian council chambers. Alarms blared, and the building shook with the force of another missile impact. They burst out of a side entrance into the acrid night air, greeted by a scene of utter chaos. Hovercars swerved madly overhead, narrowly avoiding the streams of tracer fire crisscrossing the sky. On the steps below, a pitched battle raged between the council's security forces and unmarked insurgents. "This way!" Zachary shouted over the din of screams and explosions. He pulled Pixis towards a nondescript maintenance shuttle parked haphazardly against the curb. The side hatch opened, and a grizzled human man waved them frantically inside. "Zephyr, go!" Zachary yelled as he and Pixis tumbled into the cramped cargo hold. The hatch slammed shut and the shuttle lurched skyward with a roar of overtaxed engines. Zachary and Pixis held each other as the small craft shuddered and banked hard, narrowly evading the anti-aircraft fire peppering the night sky. The sounds of pursuit fell away as they punched through the outer atmosphere and into the silent void of space. Zephyr, their longtime friend and pilot, glanced over his shoulder, his craggy face illuminated by the flashing control panels. "Where to, lovebirds? Half the damn galaxy will be hunting you after that stunt." Zachary met Pixis's eyes, love and purpose burning bright despite the uncertainty ahead. "Zephyria," he said without hesitation, "we need to disappear, and New Tortuga is the last place anyone will look for a human Jem'Hadar couple." Pixis nodded her agreement, her hand tightening around his. "Our work is not finished, my love. We'll find a way to end this war, even if we must do it from the shadows." As the small shuttle plunged into the swirling hyperspace vortex, Zachary and Pixis held fast to each other, knowing that their love was the one constant in a galaxy gone mad. The towering spires and seething neon canyons of New Tortuga rose to greet the battered shuttle as it descended through the planet's hazy atmosphere. Zachary stared out the viewport at the sprawling spaceport city, a sense of unease settling in his gut. Zephyria was a world apart, a place where the laws and norms of the wider galaxy held little sway. As they navigated the chaotic landing procedures and bribed their way through customs, the reality of their new circumstances began to sink in. The bustling streets were filled with a dizzying array of species, all jostling and shouting in dozens of alien tongues. Ramshackle stalls hawked everything from sizzling mystery meats to black market weapons tech. Pixis held tight to Zachary's arm, her senses overwhelmed by the cacophony of unfamiliar sounds and acrid smells. Finding lodging proved to be an ordeal in itself. The dingy hostels and flop houses asked few questions, but the suspicious looks and muttered insults made it clear their kind was far from welcome. Eventually, they found a cramped room above a noisy machine shop, paid for with the last of their anonymous credit chits. As they lay entwined on the narrow, lumpy mattress, Pixis's head resting on Zachary's chest, the enormity of their situation pressed down like a physical weight. They were alone, cut off from everything and everyone they had ever known, adrift in a seething underworld of criminals and outcasts. "I'm scared," Pixis whispered, her fingers tracing the line of Zachary's jaw. "How are we supposed to change anything from here? We're just two small people in a very large and hostile galaxy." Zachary kissed her softly, his hands stroking the smooth scales at the nape of her neck. "We have each other," he murmured, "and we have the truth. As long as we hold on to those two things, there's hope." But even as he spoke the words, a cold knot of uncertainty coiled in his chest. The path ahead was shrouded in shadow, and he could only pray that their love would be enough to light the way. The first rays of New Tortuga's twin suns pierced the grimy window, rousing Zachary from a fitful sleep. He blinked, momentarily disoriented by the unfamiliar surroundings. Beside him, Pixis stirred, her scales glinting in the pale light. "Any word from Zara?" she asked, her voice thick with sleep. Zachary checked his communicator and shook his head. "Nothing yet, but if anyone can help us make sense of this mess, it's her." They dressed quickly, donning nondescript clothes that would help them blend into the teeming crowds of New Tortuga. As they stepped out onto the bustling street, the acrid stench of industrial waste assaulted their nostrils. "There," Pixis said, pointing to a flickering holographic sign. "The dead drop. That's where Zara said to meet her contact." The dingy bar was nearly empty at this early hour. A four-armed bartender eyed them suspiciously as they made their way to a secluded booth. Moments later, a hooded figure slid in across from them. "You the ones looking for answers?" The gravelly voice belonged to a scarred Tarkasian, his tentacles twitching nervously. "Zara said you'd come. Follow the trail," she said. "It'll lead you to the truth." He slid a data chip across the table. Zachary pocketed it quickly, his heart racing. "What truth?" The Tarkasian's eyes darted around the room. "The war. It's all a lie. Follow the money and you'll see who's really pulling the strings." Before they could press for more details, the alien vanished into the crowd. Zachary and Pixis exchanged worried glances. "We need somewhere secure to access this data," Pixis said. They found a rundown cyber cafe, renting a private booth with the last of their credits. As the information from the chip unspooled across the screen, their eyes widened in shock. "By the stars," Zachary breathed. "The Erebus Syndicate, they're behind everything." Pixis leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper. "Look at these financial records. Contributions from both UTF and Jem'Hadar officials. They're funding both sides of the war." A notification flashed on the screen, an invitation to a clandestine meeting of syndicate members scheduled for that very night. "This is our chance," Zachary said, his heart made. "We infiltrate the meeting, gather proof of their involvement." Pixis nodded, her eyes gleaming with a mix of excitement and fear. "It's risky, but we have no choice. The galaxy needs to know the truth." As they stepped back out onto the crowded streets of New Tortuga, a sense of purpose filled them. They had a lead, a chance to expose the corruption at the heart of the war. But as they began preparations for their dangerous mission, neither could shake the feeling that they were diving headlong into something far bigger and deadlier than they had ever imagined. The neon-drenched streets of New Tortuga faded into the rear view as Zachary and Pixis's stolen shuttle broke atmosphere. Cade Bannon's weathered face flickered on the comm screen, his expression grim. "My crew's ready," the mercenary captain growled. "But this ain't gonna be a cakewalk. Calypso's defenses are state-of-the-art." Zachary nodded, his heart made. "We've come too far to back down now." As they approached the mining moon, Pixis ran final checks on their ragtag assault team. Disillusioned soldiers from both sides of the conflict had rallied to their cause, united by the shocking revelations of the data chip. The comm hub loomed before them, a fortress of gleaming metal and pulsing energy shields. Bannon's ship provided cover fire as their shuttle screamed towards the landing pad. Alarms blared. Weapons fire erupted from defense turrets. "Now!" Pixis shouted. They burst from the shuttle, a motley crew of humans and Jem Hadar moving as one. Zachary's heart pounded as he ducked behind a cargo container, plasma bolts sizzling overhead. "We need to reach that access point," he called out, gesturing towards a heavily guarded doorway. Pixis nodded, her scales glinting in the harsh lights. "Cover me!" She sprinted forward, agile and deadly. Zachary watched in awe as she took down 3 guards in quick succession, her movements fluid and precise. He followed in her wake, using his diplomatic skills to sow confusion among the remaining defenders. "Your superiors have betrayed you," he shouted, his voice carrying across the battlefield. "We're here to expose the truth." Doubt flickered in the eyes of some guards. A few even lowered their weapons. The team fought their way deeper into the facility, Bannon's mercenaries providing crucial support. They reached the central transmission array, a towering structure humming with raw data. Zachary's hands flew across the control panel, uploading the incriminating files. Come on," he muttered. A proximity alarm blared. Pixis's eyes widened. "Zachary, we've got company." Through the view screen, they watched a sleek shuttle touch down. Senator Elias Croft emerged, flanked by the imposing figure of General Kraxagar. "We're out of time," Zachary said, his finger hovering over the transmit button. Pixis gripped her weapon tightly. "Do it!" He pressed down. The array pulsed, sending the truth cascading across 1 billion worlds. The door exploded inward. Croft and Kraxagar stormed in, rage twisting their features. "You fools," Croft snarled. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Plasma bolts filled the air. Zachary dove for cover, his heart in his throat. He saw Pixis engaged in furious hand-to-hand combat with Kraxagar, their movements a deadly blur. A scream of pain. Kraxagar collapsed, a smoking hole in his chest. Croft's eyes widened in disbelief. He turned and fled, disappearing into the chaos. "We need to go now," Bannon's voice crackled over the comm. "Syndicate reinforcements incoming." They raced back to the shuttle, adrenaline surging. As they lifted off, Zachary caught a glimpse of Croft's ship vanishing into the stars. "This isn't over," he murmured. Hours later, huddled in the cramped quarters of an asteroid mining rig, they watched the galaxy erupt. News feeds from 100 worlds showed the same scenes. Protests in the streets, politicians scrambling for cover, military brass being led away in chains. Pixis squeezed Zachary's hand, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "We did it," she whispered. He nodded, exhaustion and elation warring within him. But there's still so much work to be done. A ping from their secure comm unit caught their attention. It was a message from the Galactic Council, summoning them to oversee new peace negotiations. Zachary met Pixis's gaze, seeing his own willpower reflected there. They had exposed the truth and derailed the war machine. Now came the hard part, building a lasting peace between their peoples. The Galactic Council chambers bustled with activity as delegates from 100 worlds gathered for the historic peace negotiations. Zachary and Pixis stood at the center of it all, their presence a testament to the power of love in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. As they made their way to the grand ceremonial plaza for the treaty signing, Pixis leaned close to Zachary. "I have news," she whispered, her eyes shining. "We're going to have a child." Zachary's face lit up with joy, but before he could respond, chaos erupted. A deafening explosion rocked the plaza. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air as camouflaged snipers opened fire from hidden positions. Gunships materialized overhead, their shields deflecting return fire from the overwhelmed security forces. "Wraith!" Pixis hissed, her military training kicking in as she scanned for threats. The assassin seemed to materialize from thin air, a blur of augmented speed and deadly precision. Zachary's bodyguards fell in rapid succession, their weapons proving useless against Wraith's enhanced reflexes. Pixis sprang into action, her Jem Hadar combat skills allowing her to meet the assassin blow for blow. They traded strikes at lightning speed, a lethal dance amid the screaming crowd and panicked dignitaries. A stray burst of fragmentation fire caught Zachary in the chest. He crumpled to the ground, blood seeping through his formal attire. Pixis's momentary distraction was all Wraith needed to gain the upper hand. As the assassin closed in for the kill, Zachary gasped out his final words. Pixis, the baby. Wraith froze, cybernetic implants visibly pulsing as conflicting directives clashed within the assassin's augmented mind. Seizing the opportunity, Pixis launched herself at Wraith with every ounce of strength she had left. They grappled furiously, crashing through a decorative fountain. Water and blood mingled as Pixis finally overpowered her foe, but not before a vibroblade sliced deep across her abdomen. As Wraith melted away into the chaos, Pixis crawled to Zachary's side, their hands intertwined as medical teams swarmed around them, working frantically to stabilize the grievously wounded couple. The plaza fell silent, the failed assassination attempt hanging heavy in the air. Then a lone voice began to chant, "Peace! Peace! Peace!" The cry was taken up by others, swelling into a thunderous chorus that echoed across the gathered worlds. In that moment, as Zachary and Pixis fought for their lives, the persistence for lasting change only grew stronger. Days later, on a distant frontier world, Pixis sat vigil by Zachary's bedside. His comatose form was a stark contrast to the brilliant diplomat who had sparked a revolution. She cradled her swollen belly, marveling at the impossible life growing within her. "Our daughter will know peace," Pixis whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "But she needs you, Zachary. We both do." Outside the window, the twin suns of their new home world dipped below the horizon. As darkness fell, Pixis continued her lonely watch, holding fast to the hope that Zachary would one day awaken to see the future they had sacrificed so much to create.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.